Welcome. It's actually one of the benefits, I think, of the Zoom world that so many photo alums, so many people part of the school community who aren't New York can attend these events. So I'm happy to see when I was looking at the list of people who were going to attend, how many photo alum were on the list. So welcome. Um, so we have Andrew Harnik, AP photographer tonight, and he, among other things, what I really want to talk about was the January 6th of the Capitol, which was kind of an unprecedented historical moment, an unprecedented visual moment too, in terms of the coverage. And it's come at a time when, we're questioning some of the precepts of journalism credibility is being challenged as never before. And in many respects, this coverage and the AP in general, I think, represents some of the most foundational elements and the best of what photojournalism is. So tonight's an opportunity, I think, to talk to Andy and explore some of those. And let me give you a bit of background, and then I'll tell you the format, and then I'm going to hand it over to Andy. So Andy Harnik has worked as a newspaper and magazine photojournalist since 2003. He's been recognized with awards for the Photos of the Year International and National Press Photographers Association, Best Photojournalism competitions, as well as the White House News and Photographers Association for the past 9 years in a row, including Political Photograph of the Year in 2012, and again in 2017, a top honor. Recently, his work has taken him around the world with top US diplomats and all over the country with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in their race for president. So what Andy and I have discussed is, well, I think people are really interested in the January 6th coverage primarily. I think really to give that context, particularly because we're a school and a lot of the people attending are students, he's going to present some earlier work and basically show us images that sort of explain how he got to that moment in history and in his career. And the format is basically he's going to show pictures for about 20 minutes. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So really no questions during that first 20-minute period, and questions will be in the chat. So Leo March, who's the class of 21 student, who's the college CA, who we all owe a big thank you to because he's the one who pulled this together. He's going to be fielding the questions in the chat. And then after that sort of roughly 20 minutes of a presentation, the rest will be Q&A until 8 o'clock. So with that, Andy, I will hand it over to you.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks, Leo. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm born and raised in Washington D.C. and I know that everybody is is very interested in what happened January 6th and the inauguration. So I won't spend all that much time kind of talking about my background, but I just wanted to just sort of give you a sense of it, just because when I was a student, I didn't really know exactly what was out there, what was possible. So I started I started out of school as a newspaper photographer. I was covering anything that you would really see in a daily newspaper. From daily life to sports, to breaking news, portraits, food reviews, all sorts of things. This is Kevin Durant in high school. I mean, you kind of end up seeing a little bit of everything that way. I did not have an amazing internship with the New York Times or the Post. I was really sort of starting out doing local news. I shot a lot of high school sports, a lot of food reviews, a lot of parades, that sort of thing. And just over the years, just kind of worked my way up through the newspapers that were in and around DC, and eventually I landed at the Washington Post, and I was kind of I was on a contract with them. I was not a staff photographer, and during that time, AP offered me a job, and I took it. So so that's kind of where I came from. I'm just gonna, I had a lot more to show here, but I'm just gonna kind of go through these a bit quicker. A lot of what we do at the Associated Press is covering politics. Um, we we spend probably 80%, 85% covering Capitol Hill and the White House. In the DC is a politics-focused town, but we also cover everything else: sports, daily news, breaking news, that sort of thing. But at the same time, you're really still looking for moments and trying to make politics, which typically is not visual by any means. You're trying to find something interesting, something different, and something that's going to sort of help carry along the story of the day visually, to help kind of bring something else to the story. Somebody asked me what it was like the first time being in the Oval Office. You can see there's one guy that looks really nervous in there, alongside lots of other photographers. But I guess over time you kind of get used to it. Working in DC is fairly unique. Photographers tend to be kind of on their own on a lot of different assignments. In DC, you're really shoulder to shoulder to your competition. This is just my daily laptop and the amount of junk that I have to carry around with it. But you're really kind of we usually travel with a backpack and an assortment of cameras, just basically what you can carry, and lots of remote cameras. There's lots of smaller rooms where we're unable to pack as many photographers as we would like. You're dealing with gear, and ladders, and kind of fighting for position. This is the Associated Press staff at the DC bureau. It's a fairly large staff for compared to some of our other publications here. But this is kind of a typical big hearing. That's Mark Zuckerberg, and everybody's kind of shoulder to shoulder trying to get something different from the guy next to them. There I am, next to looks like 5 or 6 other cameras. You're always trying not to get into other people's shots, but that just kind of happens. That's just kind of the nature of being around all these other people. We also travel with the Secretary of State all over the world. This is Juju Chang with ABC News, carrying foreign currency, I believe, in Chad and in Africa. And we cover elections. This is from last election season, covering Hillary Clinton. And again, you're kind of running and taking pictures and sending pictures whenever you have a chance to. And then it's on to the next thing. And people you could give you a strange look when you're filing in kind of strange places. But it's a lot of waiting, and it's a lot of kind of shoulder to shoulder, and there is serious frustration trying to do your job when you're moving this quickly. And you develop a tight friendship with other journalists, flying around on the campaign planes. This is just an idea of kind of behind the scenes of covering a campaign. This is like a daily occurrence when the candidate would come back to talk to members of the media on the campaign plane. This is a Secret Service agent who was coming back from the bathroom and wasn't able to get back to his seat for maybe half an hour there. But again, you're trying to have fun at the same time, and you're trying not to take everything too seriously. You're eating when you can, and sleeping when you can. We travel a lot. I'll just run through a couple of these quick videos. And there you can see that's Trump's photographer. There's Air Force One and Marine One landing during an international trip there. And you're basically kind of, sometimes they'll bring you in to just take a quick, what's called a photo spray, where you only have a matter of seconds before they kick you back out of the room to make something interesting and something different from the competitors who are right next to you with the same amount of access. So it's definitely can be stressful. Here, I'll just play it. This is on Air Force One.
There are those that say if he did do it, he wouldn't have gotten caught. All right, which is very interesting.
So when he comes, he'll come back to the members of the press. We have a section of the plane that's kind of our area. We're not really allowed to go anywhere else. And you can take some pictures, but you're really fighting for space, really. And if you're lucky, you get a picture that ends up in the paper the next day for it. But again, we try to have fun. This is Doug Mills with the New York Times, goofing off. There's a lot of waiting, for events. So you try to have fun while you can. Anyway, that's just a quick sense of kind of what kind of working in and around and traveling with DC. I've got hundreds of photos of waiting, everybody sleeping. Don't fall asleep next to a bunch of photographers because we'll all take pictures with you. So it's not all serious to try to have fun with each other. This is a Clinton guy getting whiskers drawn on his cheeks. So anyway, I know everybody's excited about talking about January 6th, and I'm happy to just kind of switch over to that, or if you guys have questions and want to come back to anything, what it's like covering Obama versus Trump versus Biden, what it's like trying to make interesting photographs in a very dry city like DC. I'm really here for you guys. So if the questions take us somewhere else, I'm happy to kind of switch gears. So I'll just talk about January 6th now.
Maybe, Andy.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, maybe you could go a little bit into, perhaps these last 4 years covering Trump, or like you said, the comparison between Trump and Obama.
Sure. Just
maybe there's something there too.
Absolutely. So Obama and Trump, obviously, I don't need to tell you guys, two very, very different people, different characters. Obama kind of followed the traditional politician path, and visually, I would say though, visually, Obama and Trump are both, they are attention-grabbing people. They are iconic in two very different ways. So it was interesting to cover Obama's presidency, and then wake up on inauguration day or the day after inauguration day, and get to see a completely different organization. So obviously, Trump, Donald Trump, and Obama are both, you know, they're calculating about their image, and that's important to note. What the difference is, though, Obama and his administration were much more sort of they really pulled back in terms of access. You know, access is something that photographers have to fight for, and Obama was quite tight. I should say the Obama administration was quite tight with access. With Donald Trump, it was a complete sea change. We would come in for a spray, which I talked to you about before, which is, you know, something that's supposed to happen for just a matter of minutes, maybe even less than a minute. And with Trump, these sprays would turn into 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, where we would be in there with him. You know, they were much more sort of open to ideas and welcoming for photography. And you know, Donald Trump is no stranger to the media, and he definitely is extremely image conscious. He knows exactly what he wants and what he doesn't want. You know, I've had 2 portrait sessions with him. The first one, I really kind of learned how sort of hands-on he is, much more than a typical politician usually is. He wants to immediately see the first image you take from the back of your camera. You know, he doesn't want you to shoot low. He's, you know, because he's concerned about his chin. He doesn't want to be photographed from behind or from the side because of his hair. And so you kind of learn what he is going to allow and what you you know, what you'd be able to do. So the second time I photographed him was actually in the Oval Office, and I'll just jump over to those images. There's a quick portrait session with Trump, and really, we as photographers are so accustomed to in DC, we're so accustomed to not being allowed access more than a few seconds or a minute. The time of the president is so valuable. So you know, I was expecting no different from Donald Trump. So you kind of think about what you might be allowed to do, what you might be able to do in the amount of time that you have, and with Donald Trump, but you know, it turned out that we actually had a little bit of time together. So I was looking, it was going to be in the Oval Office, and I was looking at different pictures. This is at the beginning of his presidency. This is Barack Obama. This is, I believe, John F. Kennedy. And so I kind of wanted to do something like this, and I knew he would say no because it's the back of his head, and it would show, you know, his hair. And so I kind of queued these up on my iPhone, ready to show him. And so this is Julie Pace, who's now our bureau chief with the Associated Press, and they finished up their interview, and I got maybe 3 minutes with him. So I'm just gonna kind of rapid fire. This is my full take. This is everything that I took, and you can see kind of the toning difference. These are images that we actually moved to the wire. But I got the 2 of them speaking, and then I did a quick portrait here with him at the table. Just incredible posture and pose that I never expected him to do. I never expected him to get. You know, Julie took a picture of me taking his picture. I got him to do this picture just because he immediately said no, and I said, you know, sir, I have this picture on my iPhone. This is kind of what I was doing, what I'm hoping for. And he said, okay, that's fine. And I told them to cut the lights in the Oval Office, and they turned them off. And so I told them to look out the window, and we did a couple different portraits. I think I went down on one knee to shoot up on him at this point, and he told me to stand back up. He said, could you stand back up, please? And I said, oh, sure. Jared Kushner came in and disrupted us for a minute. And then he said, okay, thanks, we'll see you later. And I said, oh, sir, we discussed going out to the colonnade. And he said, oh, that's right. So we walked out to the colonnade, and I'm just taking pictures the whole time because, I'm looking for anything. Usually we have a fraction of this time, and every picture counts because you don't know the next time you're going to be allowed this much access. So that was it. Let's see. It really less than 3 minutes. And we ended up with a good number of portraits together. So that's just kind of a quick example of the difference between the two people, the two presidents. Happy to jump over to January 6th if you'd like. So I was, I actually had a pretty big role covering the inauguration. And so they kind of, my office, my editors had kind of given me the easy day on January 6th. I was inside covering, what happens in the House and Senate chambers inside the Capitol building. And, it was a typical day. The people doing a protest outside in Washington, D.C., that's completely normal. If you live in the city, you're accustomed to seeing protests on any number of subjects on the National Mall, in front of the Capitol building, in front of the White House, and in and around the city. That's the right of all Americans to voice their opinions. Many people come to DC to choose to do that. So really up until the point that, the protesters turned to the Capitol and started making their way in, it was basically a fairly normal day. DC is full of lots of different rules and protocols. So even as I was, even if things were breaking down, I kind of just thought to myself, everybody's overreacting. This is typical DC. Everything's going to be fine. But little did I know that multiple points had been in the Capitol had been breached. So now I'll just switch over to the photos here. So like I said, my day started just coming into the Capitol, and there were protesters outside, and I just made a couple quick pictures with the dome in the background, and then I went inside. That day, as everybody knows, the Congress was responsible for certifying the election results, deeming Biden as the winner. And so I basically was photographing what was happening inside the House chamber, which only happens really a few times a year. It's not something that happens very often. So we had dedicated photographers in there, and in the afternoon, I got a phone call. I was just sending pictures off of the House chamber, and I got a phone call from one of my editors, and he said, "Hey, things are starting to look a little dicey out on the East Front. Can you see if you can see anything through a window? We don't want you to go out there because we don't want you to be barred from coming back into the building if things get bad." So I found this window, and I was making a couple pictures, and really within a matter of seconds, I saw there was a police line, and people kind of broke through that line and ran up these stairs which are never allowed. Nobody's allowed to come up those stairs. It's guarded by police. And these doors in front of those stairs lead directly into the rotunda. So that was a moment where I thought things were really starting to get out of hand. But again, I didn't think very much of it. Somebody ran up to me as I was making this picture, saying, the building is in lockdown, return to your office. And I tried to, and I assuming that nothing would happen, nobody would get through these big doors. And I couldn't get back to that office, which is basically a small office for press off the House chamber. A member of security basically grabbed me and took me down a hallway and threw me back into the House chamber with my cameras and locked the door behind me. And I suddenly found myself looking down on the House floor from the gallery level, where they were evacuating members of Congress, and members of the security team on the floor started just sort of stacking furniture anything that they could find in front of the main door that led to the House chamber. Now, usually during normal times, the gallery level is an area reserved for visitors to watch what's going on the House floor, and for members of the press. But because of COVID, they had basically been spacing everybody out and using the gallery level for members of Congress to watch the debate below. So I really found myself shoulder to shoulder with members of Congress, and the security was yelling for me to get down and keep my head down and stay silent. So, but I had a job to do, and I kind of disobeyed them and kept taking pictures despite being yelled at over and over by security. These are members of Congress up there, and they evacuated the House floor, and but they didn't really have the hallways secured where we were, so they kind of held us in place for quite some time. And I was close enough to hear members of Congress, and there was all kinds of emotion, from fear, definitely fear, anger, resentment, sadness. There were some members that were kind of trying to help members of security and calm other members who were afraid. Eventually, they started evacuating us, and we basically came out of those doors and found people at gunpoint down on the ground, just outside of the chamber. So at that point, we weren't watching TV. We were photographing what was happening in front of us. So that was a jarring moment. At the same time, we all have cell phones, so I was texting with members of my family saying, I'm okay. I'm kind of inside the security bubble here. So because they were all watching CNN and freaking out. So once they secured the building and brought members of Congress back in, they still had about 4 or 5 hours of work to do to certify the election results. By law, they had to finish this. So I was kind of on and off in front of I was going back into the House chamber to photograph that. And maybe about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, I kind of just grabbed my camera and just walked around the building to see what things kind of looked like. And I found this congressman, a young freshman congressman from New Jersey. This is Andy Kim. And I didn't realize he was a congressman at this point. He was just picking up trash, helping these heavily armed members of different branches of military and security to pick up trash and debris that had been kind of strewn about during this attack on the Capitol. So there was yeah, I mean, it was in a state that in 18 years of covering Congress, you just don't see the building in this state. Everything was dirty, and there was trash and broken furniture, and members of Congress were sort of just kind of walking around. This is a senator who kind of stopped to see what was going on, and found Andy Kim again, and they certified the vote, and they finished at about 4:15, and I got home about 5 a.m. and did a interview with the BBC, and collapsed in bed at 5 a.m. So I can go on and talk about inauguration, or if there are questions out there that people want to go in a different direction, I'm happy to do that. The inauguration was a very technical thing where we at the Associated Press had a lot of photographers, but we also were responsible for a lot of remote cameras, including one at basically the foot of Joe Biden when he was sworn in. That's a lot more technical, and the pictures were automatically FTPing all over the place, and it was exciting technically, but maybe that's not something that people are interested in getting into the weeds about.
Maybe, I mean, I'm interested, and I'm certainly interested in, having photographed Obama and Trump, what the Biden White House is like now by comparison. But maybe this is something that'll come up in the Q&A, but let's, or you can cover it now if you want, whatever you prefer to do.
Sure. I mean, it's only been a few months, but Biden is a career politician, and he was vice president and a senator before that. It is much more in the normal state of affairs for a White House. Feels very similar to Obama and George W. Bush before Obama. Yeah, it's a little boring. It's a little slower. The kind of his day finishes at a much earlier time, and there are there's way less sort of surprises and long photo sprays, that sort of thing. But the access has been fair, and we'll see how that continues going forward. But yeah, I mean, the last 4 years were completely unique for the people covering it, who've covered it a lot longer than I have. In the modern era, it's just been truly unique.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we go ahead and open it up to questions? And for late arrivals, the way this is going to work is we'll take questions from chat. And Leo March, the college assistant, will go through and pluck questions out. We'll try and get to as many as we can in the remaining about 25 minutes. And let's see how this goes. Go ahead, Leo, if you want to, if there are any sort of burning questions or things sticking out.
Sure. Yeah, let's go to the Q&A. I think I have Elizabeth first in the list. Let's just ask one question per person, and then once everyone asks their question, we can go back if people have like a second or a third question. So Elizabeth.
What was it like to photograph Lady Gaga?
Well, I knew that she was going to be I knew she was going to be there, and at the inauguration, um, and I just wasn't expecting the dress that she wore. Here, I'll just take you guys to some of those photos from the inauguration. So the inauguration was the Associated Press was given what's called a pool assignment. A pool basically means that the photographs that you take from a pool position are distributed to everybody in the pool. So that's typically really used when there's not enough space to accommodate 10 photographers or 30 photographers. So this was kind of a photograph invented by one of Obama's photographers, and he did this remote camera when Barack Obama was sworn in 2008, and it's kind of something that's continued since with the media. So it's kind of a rotating assignment. AP had it this year, and I was put in charge of it. So we used a remote camera, one of the new Sonys that are silent, so it doesn't distract in the moment. And I was triggering it using an Ethernet cord that went back to my laptop, and every picture was instantly, the RAWs were all saved inside the camera, and the JPEGs were FTP'd back to the office, where there was a waiting editor to move them to distribute them to the AP, to all the other wires, all the other newspapers instantly. And then if that failed, there was a backup where it would all download to my laptop in real time, and then I would be able to send a JPEG from my laptop where I was, which is what ended up happening. It was the FTP had a glitch in it, and so I ended up sending the picture. So this is us. This is myself and White House photographers kind of getting ready. It was a long process. Took lots of planning. Basically, screwing a plate down into the ground, just right next to the podium. This is this purple thing, kind of protecting the podium before the start. Multiple other remote cameras that we put up all over the place. Here's more pictures of us getting ready. Here's Lady Gaga's microphone. So I knew she was walking out, and that camera might capture something interesting. This is me standing in for Biden. And so it's just a really long day. The inauguration is an exhausting day. We're waking up at 3 a.m. and up at the Capitol at 4 a.m. This is Donald Trump leaving D.C. for the end of his presidency on Marine One, and we photographed him doing that from our positions. And then Lady Gaga walked out, and I was just able to make a couple different frames with her dress. These are super wide angle lenses, so the distortion was an issue. And in fact, she was singing so close to the cameras that those photos she looked really strange. It was really up her nose, and so the ones with her kind of walking away with her dress were the ones that we ended up using. This is the photo I took from my camera, from where I was standing. This is with a 600 millimeter with a 2x2 converter, so 1200 millimeter. And then this is I actually had put two cameras in there. and it was great. We were happy with the results.
Thank you.
Andrea Lopez Cruzado.
Yeah, Andy, well, thank you so much for sharing all these fabulous photos with us. And a lot of the photos that you share show you in super crowded settings with your colleagues on top of each other. So how do you deal with that now that you need to social distance and you need to take care of yourself? How has your job changed since the pandemic?
Well, that's a great question. It's definitely very, very different, and there's basically a lot of pool situations, which I just touched on, where a smaller number of photographers are allowed to cover certain events, and we're more social distanced, and it's kind of a rotation. Some places are handling it differently than others. The White House basically is relying on what's called the White House tight pool. So no matter where the president is in the world, there's always a rotating group of reporters, photographers, and one videographer, and it's 13 people. And so if he's abroad, we travel with him on the plane. If he is on vacation, if Obama went to Hawaii, we're there with him. And that's really just, they're the most important person in the world. And if something happens and they need to get a message out, those 13 people are basically there to, with those reporters, photographers, and one videographer, that's basically enough to basically get whatever they need to get out to the entire world. So it's been a lot of that. Sometimes we're a little closer than many people would feel comfortable with, but we're all wearing N95 masks. We're all being tested every morning. If somebody were around, goes down with COVID, which has happened, they basically figure out who was with that person, and everybody goes to quarantine. So, there have been times this last year where, I get a call and say, go to the White House right now because somebody tested positive, and, you're basically replacing them. So it's been a for everybody, it's been a unique year. I will say though that it is nice not to have to fight shoulder to shoulder with everybody in some of these big events, but obviously we prefer it to be safe.
Thank you.
Deborah Kilgallen.
Yes, thank you. Andrew, can you tell me about the kind of work, the things that you have to do to your photos before you submit them? And how much time do you have to do that?
That changes. That's changed over the course of my career. Everything has become so instant. So these days, if it's a really important event, I'll have already typed up a caption in the IPTC information and loaded that into the camera, and we carry MiFis, and I can connect to my iPhone, and basically, if it's an important event, the moment we take the picture, we can look down and send the picture, and that goes FTP to the office, where an editor checks it and then sends it out to the wire. That's not necessary for every event. Something that's not as time sensitive, or it's not the president, or something breaking on Capitol Hill. It's you pull out your laptop, you sit down, you ingest your cards and type them you usually have a caption that's kind of pre-written, and then fill in the blanks and send that out. But when the insurrection happened at the Capitol, I just connected to my phone because that's all I took out with me, and started sending pictures. And they hit the wire instantly, and CNN and Fox News and all the 24-hour news just started posting them, and my phone became completely inoperable within just 15 or 20 minutes, because people were calling me, people were texting me, asking for interviews. It was the amount of attention that was focused on the Capitol was unlike anything I've ever seen, or probably we've ever seen in a few generations.
To your question.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. I was actually also going to ask about coronavirus coverage, but I'll just change my question. So I'm now curious also about your experience abroad, and how that's kind of informed your career covering national politics, and just kind of the differences working abroad and covering US diplomats, and kind of covering the races here.
That's a good question. Nobody's asked that before. Each country's photographers have their own sort of policies and behaviors. So the South Korean journalists always carry a ladder with them, like a 3-step, wherever they go, and they're also extremely aggressive. There are a lot of countries that are more aggressive than others. They're just that's the way that their journalists have basically the culture of their journalists in their country. Others are much more standoffish, and you will stand here and I will stand here, and that's it. You won't you won't come over here and push me out of the way or whatever. Yeah, you learn how to play nice wherever you are, I guess, or you don't. I try to.
Lara Stein. Lara?
Yeah, Laura just left the room. The question was if you've had any disasters, where any malfunctions, and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for small newspapers, and that gave me a chance to make all the mistakes you could ever think of. I would show up with no batteries. I'd show up with no cards in the camera. I'd show up to the wrong place. And the nice thing about working for a small newspaper is nobody cares that much. I mean, if you missed the first half of the lacrosse game, in the local high school, that's okay. It's not such a big deal where every moment counts. But like I said, protests are not something unusual in DC. I've been pepper sprayed. There's been plenty of scrums shoulder to shoulder with other photographers, that sort of thing. I can't really think of any huge mistakes. At least not yet.
Okay, well, thank you.
I just want to point out we're at the 10-minute mark.
Okay. Fruling?
Hi, Andrew. It's really nice to hear you talk. I just realized that so many of the photos that I recognized from that day was actually from you. That's really cool to hear you talk about your experience that day. My question has to do with like, how do you keep your cool during a breaking news situation such as the insurrection? Like, how do you, because I imagine things can be so overwhelming, and it's not that you're being an observer, you're also like a participant, like you're also experiencing the whole thing as it's happening. So like, what kicks into your like mind? How do you prioritize? Like, okay, keep my cool, I have to shoot this, I have to make sure I get this. Like what kind of instinct kicks in when that happens?
That's a great question, and that's one that I've gotten more than any other as it relates to the insurrection. I mean, it helps to have something to do, right? You have your job is to capture what's happening in front of you, and wherever we are, our job is to do that. But you try to not be a part of the story as much as possible. That was a unique experience, something that I had never experienced, and the people that went through it had never either. There were moments where I could feel fear kind of creeping in, but you kind of have to push it down, and you have something to do. You have a job to do, and I was hired to be in this situation and cover what's happening for a reason, and that kind of helps you. I'm not you don't really have time to sit there and think about what ifs or let your emotions take over. You kind of have to stay focused, and that stuff can come later, and it definitely did. The whole day could have been much worse for everybody involved. So, but in the moment, you have to just kind of push on with what you have to do.
Thanks.
Peter Sensamichi.
Hey there, Andrew. Thanks for all your time today. So I'm kind of curious for your shots that seem a little bit more technical, especially doing the remote stuff. That means you're traveling with probably 3-4 cameras and whatever associated grip that you've got with that. I'm just kind of curious, similar to John's question about just uploading and transmitting remotely. How are you carrying all of this? And do you ever have help carrying with it? And what are your tips for being able to stand up straight past 40?
Those are great questions. For running around or traveling, I really only have 2 bodies, a wide angle and a zoom, and maybe an extender that I can throw on there if I need more space, and a backpack with chargers and batteries and a laptop, that sort of thing. I've never really been a gear head. I like learning how the camera works, but beyond that, it's just a tool to make interesting, hopefully, photographs. But that said, gear does matter, and it does help to have good gear. But for events like the inauguration, we're trucking in an enormous amount of gear because it's all fixed and it's all an event. And I'm going to be here, and we have 2 days or we have a week to run power and Ethernet and set up cameras on magic arms all over the place, and then sync them up and make sure that everything works. So for that day, I was firing 7 remotes, and then photographing with the cameras that I had with me. And really the learning the technology, learning how to do that, it wouldn't have been possible without these new cameras. And it really did work pretty darn well. But no, and to be sure, nobody carries nobody carries anything for me. You carry all of your stuff. You carry your photography, your laptop, and your clothes. I mean, nobody's helping you.
So Leo says we have 2 more questions. Maybe we can pack them both in here.
Eric Basrun. Eric?
How many times have you met Joe Biden?
I've met Joe Biden a number of times. We haven't really had a conversation more beyond just sort of like, hey, how you doing there? But we spent, I spent all of 2020 flying around the country covering him during the election, and now I see him at the White House.
And Charlene Freeman.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for joining us today. I'm curious how, when you all are packed together, are you getting these great shots? Like, what does it take as far as that? And I was asking about the equipment, but you somewhat answered that already.
Gotcha. Well, it's not just because you're trying doesn't mean it always works out that way. Let's see. I did have, let me just put this up. Put the screen back again.
Yeah, like how are you all not ending up with the same shots?
Yeah, so you're, sorry. You're really trying to make something different, and you're thinking all the time. It's a process. There you go. It's always a process. It doesn't just happen. You're kind of looking for something different, something unique, something that your competition, who's definitely out there, even if you're not seeing them, or you're shoulder to shoulder, they're going to see everything. The photographers that come to DC are brought to DC from all over the world because it's such an important city. So you really gotta bring it. So here I am covering 4th of July fireworks, and I'm trying to find something, and I see this couple, and they're kind of embracing, and I just waited for a moment, and there's a nice big red firework, and that was kind of the shot that ended up running. Sometimes the action is too close, so any number of things are happening, but you really want to anticipate what will happen before it does, or even days before it does, and then sort of position yourself in a place where you think that that things are going to move towards, and then part of it is planning and trying to be at the right place at the right time, and some of it is just luck. So this is RG3. This is when he played for the Redskins, and I knew he was one of the fastest running quarterbacks of all time. And I said, all season, at some point he's gonna have to run and dive for a touchdown. And I kind of would sit here for maybe 6 or 7 games, and finally he scrambled out and dove for a touchdown, and I was here to make this image. And then he fell over. Trying to think what else. Yeah, so we're shooting a lot. We're shooting, and I know that you asked about shoulder to shoulder, so maybe these aren't perfect examples, but we are shooting all the time, thousands of images a day, and I like showing full takes to students because it gives you a sense of like working for an image, working for something that really works. And I was out here for quite a while playing with this steam, playing with people as during sunset, and Obviously, this is quite a bit more tone than even I do now. But you know, I was young. But you know, I really like this image, and you know, I didn't just walk up and it happened. You know, you really have to spend time. You know, and here's a bunch of photos I took after the fact that are kind of crappy. So again, you're trying to think, you're trying to outthink your competition, but you know, sometimes it works out, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get a shot that's captivating and tells the story in an interesting way.
All right, folks, I think that's a wrap. Andy, thank you so much for doing this. This was great. Thank you to the whole Harnik family for lending him to us this evening. And a special thanks to Jennifer Dale in events at the school who helped pull this together, and Leo March, whose brainchild this whole thing was. So, you know, alum photo folks, stay tuned. We want to do more of these. And again, Andy, thanks. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, Andy.
Guys.
Have a good night.
See you.